let me introduce the next crew. They are called SERVFAIL, and they do something which a system you all might know of, because there's always this one, we have been hacked. No, it was DNS. So they just started as a joke on a shitpost on Fedi, and then they just started to end up spending multiple weeks and hacking on everything DNS. They did infra setups, they automating DNS sec deployments, and they did write a full custom zone edit website. And please welcome with a warm round of applause. Here you go.
Thank you very much for the introduction. Is it on? Yes. Okay. Thank you very much for the very nice introduction. As already mentioned, we are Team SERVFAIL, like the DNS error code. Yes. And this is our story on how we accidentally made a whole authoritative DNS network, because why not? First of all, who are we? We are FAMFO, maybe known of DN42 fame, the person I go to if I have network issues, because he knows everything. Then we have me, I just shitpost way too much on the internet, and I somehow ended up here. And then we have Domi, you may know them from writing a Minecraft server in Bash, or a web server in Bash, or a lot of other stuff in Bash, maybe working on Bash 2 right now, nobody knows. Yes.
So, what even is DNS? There was a great talk on this stage like 2 days ago, which delved really deeply into that. So we highly recommend watching that as well. But the basis is, it is a system that maps the domains to IP addresses and does a whole lot of other stuff. Historically, we have two types of servers. We have authoritative servers, which contain the actual data that you want to query, and we have recursors which are on the way to the authoritative servers, and they cache the responses. Historically, DNS was, the name resolution was done through the hosts file, and the only thing you did was check if the domain exists in the hosts file. If it does, great, there's an IP. If it doesn't, then you don't get to resolve it. Then internet happened, and DNS got a standard. So you still check the etc hosts file to make sure that the entry doesn't exist in there. If it doesn't, we ask the resolver, here be dragons, and we're done. And that's all there is to it. So the resolvers. For the record, the item on the left is a laptop. Then let's say that we want to resolve a domain. We connect to a resolver that was assigned usually by the HCP. And that resolver itself either connects further to different resolvers. This is like a whole chain of resolvers, and then finally gets to an authoritative server. And get a response. The hierarchy is a whole different thing. We have the root zone, which contains the data about all TLDs. So to resolve a domain, you need to first go to the root zone. The records for that are usually hard-coded. Then you go to the TLD zones and ask for a specific domain. And lower down, you have name servers for this specific domain that will actually do the resolution stuff. And SERVFAIL lives somewhere around here. We are not intending to replace the root zone. This is a common misconception that I've heard. Quite a bunch of people that I described the project to asked whether we are making a replacement. No, we don't intend to. We just want to better your experience with like actual domains that you own.
So, out there are a lot of authoritative DNS providers like Cloudflare, IBM, Hurricane Electric. Your registrar probably also has a DNS server. Like, the premise is they all kind of suck. I I'm unhappy with them. Many people are unhappy with them, and most of us probably played with the idea of hosting their own name servers. Like, how hard could it be? And I did that. I moved my domain to my own primary name server and my own secondary name servers, which just replicates the primary zone in case it goes down. I can't edit it anymore, but like I have redundancy. And then there's also NS Global Zone, which is a service which just replicates your zone to their service. It's great. I used PowerDNS on my personal setup, which was just like a recommendation from a friend. Try it. I used Bind before, and it worked. As I tend to do, I posted about it on the internet. We will get to that. Here's a mail I got from Cloudflare I posted. It was like, oh yeah, your name servers no longer post to Cloudflare. They now point to like weird domains like ns1.famfo.xyz and ns2.famfo.xyz. Also, you don't have the security features we provide anymore. Happens. I posted about that mail on Feddy, and I got 2 responses from Domi and Merlin. It was like, hey, why don't you host the DNS for us and give us your API key? Don't give them your API key. Here's the idea. We want authoritative DNS hosting. We want it provided for free for everyone who wants to get access to it. And we want to keep... We don't want to have a single point of failure in the DNS system because that would kind of suck. How did we build it? We continued to use PowerDNS, which turns out to have some nice features, like the zones are stored in an SQL database, and it provides an HTTP API you can use to modify your zones and do a bunch of other administrative features. Bash. Lots of bash. You heard that Stormy wrote an HTTP server in bash.
I'm sorry.
We continue to build on that as a proof of concept, but that's stuck. We now have a web interface, an API proxy, and we sync the config for the DNS servers in bash. All of that without JavaScript. And yeah, in an ideal world, we don't exist. You just host your own DNS servers because it's funny. But we don't live in an ideal world, and my laptop just turned off. Nice, Merlin, your power bank is not working.
Oh god, that's bad.
In an ideal world, we don't exist. Everyone would be hosting their own DNS servers, and people don't want to have that commitment. So we are here for that. And I'm missing the next slide right now, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I need like 30 seconds. I'm sorry.
There's still some time. You can just. You have within time, so you can just.
Hold on.
Just talk a bit.
I don't have anything to talk about right now. Okay. Sorry, I'm terrified. Yeah.
Okay. Hello. I don't have a microphone, I guess.
I got it too. Does it work? Do we have it?
No.
Oh,
Where
cool.
is it?
Meow.
Okay. Back up.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Nevertheless.
For once, it was not DNS.
So who of you?
Where is it?
Yeah, great. That's
Hey!
it.
Don't worry about the keyton, it's fine.
Okay. That's full screen. That's it.
Close enough.
Ah, yes.
Yeah.
Sorry. What we're also trying to achieve is we want to document our experiences along the way. So if you maybe end up hosting your own authoritative DNS server in the future, we may have some useful documentation. We hope.
Well, our architecture. Yes. As mentioned before, we of course try to eliminate a single point of failure. So we have as few of those as possible. On the left-hand side, we have the web server that is handling your user requests, like changing a zone or updating DNS or whatever you want to do as an end user in the browser. It's also the API proxy that just forwards your automated request to whatever primary name server you chose when you added that zone. In the middle, we have the PowerDNS primary server. It's just a primary. It's not PowerDNS special. It works in every hosting, in every DNS server software. But that's where your zone lives. That's where the DNSSEC keys live. That's where, well, the real authoritative server for your domain is. And that one, as soon as something gets changed there, gets mirrored or notified via DNS AXFR to the secondary servers. One thing to mention is every one of our name servers can be the primary. So we can just swap out the primary and any secondary you choose when signing up for the domain. We do have a potential single point of failure, the web server. If that ever goes down, we hope it doesn't. It hasn't so far. But if that ever goes down, you may not be able to update some records for your domain, but it will still be solvable. It will not be DNS in that case. We had some issues with IPv6 on the upstream before. None of our fault. We're looking to get that replaced as soon as possible, but it's still working. It was always accessible. Yes. We do have two kinds of servers right now, stable and quirky servers. Well, the stable ones are the production-ready enterprise systems you probably want to use for your own stuff. They will not go down without anyone noticing you. We are talking to each other in case of updates, or so that no two of those get rebooted at the same time. And they are mission critical. If one of those ever goes down, you can text us or IRC us or whatever. And usually one of us will be awake at any time, and we'll get that sorted out. Another thing about the stable servers, always at least one of us and whoever maintains the server has root access to it. So if the server maintainer can't fix it, we'll try as well. We'll get that sorted out. We do have some quirky servers though. They are just to look what can we do. We had one at Past Chaos event. We have one just in weird architectures. There are talks to get one running in my car. That's still in the works. That's just whatever is available, what CPU architectures, we'll take it, we'll test it, because why not? We're here to learn stuff. Those are the stable servers so far. Some of them hosted by Dumi, some of them by Farmfo, one of them by me. They are
and one by Adrian.
Yes, Adrian also. And they are globally distributed. And we have a bunch of...
No, not again.
I don't know what happened. And we have a bunch of quirky servers as well, all around the world. Russia, because why not? Singapore, because why not? Just because we could. That's the premise behind those.
We aim to distribute it as well as possible.
Yes.
I don't think we have all continents currently, but we want all continents to have at least one server. And this is both to minimize the risk of a point of failure where something gets disconnected and you cannot access a bunch of servers because they were close to each other, but also to minimize the latency.
Also, if you know a hosting provider offering hosting in Antarctica, please contact us. Yes.
Okay, the web interface is the core of the operation. Well, you could argue that it's not fully at the center, but with our architecture, there is nothing fully at the center. Depending on which part you query, you either bypass this fully or you use only this. So the point being, this is where you add your records, this is where you edit your zones, and this is where everything happens regarding the administrative part. The currently displayed slide is a screenshot of the table edit view. That's the default. We also have a bind compatible view. Bind is the de facto name server, and the record type record schema has been used by basically every provider to manage like interoperability. So this is very useful if you want to import something from an existing provider. Furthermore, we have dynamic DNS, and I don't know if FAN4 rotated that key, so you have around 3 seconds to make a screenshot of that. Then we can share the zone. This is a very important feature that I've seen missing in a lot of DNS providers, because when you want to work on a project with more than one person, you either have to find a provider that actually allows sharing the data between two people, or you have to share the password to a common account. And sharing a password sucks. So this was one of the first things we coded in after we got the web interface to a semi-stable state. Around the web interface and around our infrastructure, we built a bunch of tools. Multi-dig is a wrapper around dig for querying all of our servers at once. This is really important for debugging propagation issues, which do sometimes happen. It's not very common, but especially when adding new servers, this helps a lot with detecting misconfigurations. Furthermore, we have the Power DNS API proxy. We added tenancy support to it, so you cannot just query someone else's zones. We have the previously outlined the DNS, and I wrote SERVFAIL sync, which is a daemon run on all servers along the Power DNS itself, and it aims to monitor the Power DNS and sync some changes that cannot be done via the API. But yeah, let's maybe not talk just about tools. Let's maybe talk about the fun parts.
There were incidents, as you may imagine. Look at this graph. That's queries per second for one of our for all of our DNS servers combined. And as you may see, something happened. What did happen, you may ask yourself. I ask, what do I want to eat for dinner today on Congress? And I just said, out of fun, yes, let's just vote via DNS, because why not? What can go wrong? Well, nothing can go wrong, because Domi answered, well, just dig at this domain, at this server, and we'll tally the votes, we'll check who has the most, which food has the most votes.
We don't even own that domain.
We don't even own that domain. But it worked.
Irrelevant.
Yes, as you may see, we have some in the beginning people figuring out on how to mass send DNS queries to that name server.
We had some people that literally wrote a C implementation of dig, and it sent queries like as fast as possible. The network stack on Linux for some was the limitation, and yeah.
Yes, we not sniped some people who just wanted to see what can be done with DNS. The answer is a lot. That's the actual Power DNS backend graphs. As you can see, almost nothing happened, like it was on Sakamoto, like the orange line on both sides.
You can see a bit of an impact, but like it's negligible.
Yes, you can. It's just daily usage. Nothing happened on the Power DNS backend. But in total, we could identify 5 individuals via Fedi who admitted to hammering our host. We managed to sustain 50,000 queries per second for a prolonged time, and at peak, 144,000 queries per second. Around 8 to 9 million requests in total, and in 1.5 minutes, 1 million requests. And what does the server do? What were the limiting factors? You see the CPU graph? It's just plain. Power DNS is so well optimized, the CPU barely even noticed the spike.
I think it hit literally like 30% of one core.
Yes,
did nothing.
Yeah. Single core usage, but nothing on the server was fine. The network interface was saturated up to, I think, around 300, 400.
Peak was like 600 megabits, but it's not really visible on the graph. Grafana displays it weird.
Yes. So not even half a gig of sustained DNS traffic, no problem for Power DNS. This is an advertisement. Yes, as on the longer graph, you may see when the incident may have happened, if you can see that line.
Yeah. Back to my bash stuff. Have you? Do you remember the thing about JS I said earlier that we don't use any? And well, this is sometimes a problem. Most of our interface is just hacked CSS, and there's a lot of that you can do without the JS. But here's one of the limitations: if you click on the record and press Tab, it incorrectly goes to the cell below it. And you can kind of fix that with tab index, but I spent around 5 hours trying to figure out a way which doesn't break the tab navigation on the entire page. I think FAMFO did the same thing a few days later. We never came up with a solution that was satisfactory. So in the future, we intend to add some minimal JavaScript to help the user experience. We intend to make it optional, so most, if not all, features will still work without it, but it will lessen the strain on us trying to do it without it, because that's a great shitpost. I'm happy that we tried. I think we proved that you can do a modern UI without any JS, but this is clearly not the way to go.
Yes. The incident number 2. Domi once wrote a nice bash script, of course. It was bash because it's Domi, that basically converted a YouTube video to DNS. Because, of course, you do that. That's a totally normal thing to do. Don't question it. And, well, there was a script that abused DNS. We have a DNS network. Can we combine those? Turns out, yes, we can. So, first of all, we chose a random YouTube video. You may not guess what it was. It turns out it compressed to around, I think, 5 megabytes of zone files. And we had to optimize the web UI of SERVFAIL because trying to load that zone in the web interface took 5 or 10 minutes, and it just ran into a timeout on the back because
I had to increase the time in Nginx, and after increasing it to 5 minutes, it's still timed out. So we decided that this will just take infinite time. I did some fixes. Currently, it loads in 8 seconds, which, by doing really simple math, it is infinite times better.
Yes. Well, we got onto the primary server. It worked on the primary server, but somehow we couldn't get it replicated onto the secondaries. So we looked into the logs. There was some strange error message we didn't really understand. There was nothing in the documentation of PowerDNS. So we just went to PowerDNS GitHub, created an issue. Hey, this is our error. It isn't working. Please don't ask why our zone is that big. We cannot explain. And within 10 minutes or so, someone answered with, yeah, obviously you have to add workaround 11804 equals yes to the config. It's totally obvious. We did that.
Everyone knows that.
Everyone knows it. And it worked. This is a nice query.
Can we actually run it? Do we have a terminal?
We may actually
Please. Can you do an F? Hell yeah. This is streaming over DNS.
For some reason, we have to do this via some other DNS resolver because the one at the Congress is kind of borked. We're trying to figure out why. It works on your home network, I'm pretty sure.
So, DNS is old. Many things got tried over the years. Some things stuck, some things didn't. This creates some vague standards. This is where the fun begins. DNSSEC. It's a great standard. You can sign your DNS records with it to make sure they haven't been tampered with. Great in theory. Here's where it gets complicated. There are multiple different algorithms and hashing functions to create that key. And registrars don't really like you using a different key to RSA and sometimes. So there are TLD registrars you can only push an RSA DNSSEC key to. And if you want to use post-quantum security or ED25519 or ED449 as DNSSEC signing keys, you can't. Because the registrars don't like that. They should just allow these few numbers in the delegation signer records. It's just 2 numbers they need to allow extra, but they don't. DNSSEC records DNS experts keep insisting that this isn't an issue because
Flump?
that doesn't come up in practice, because it should just work. It does in theory, but especially Identity Digital refuses to accept ED25519 keys, and Identity Digital owns like half of the GTLDs on the internet.
A very important thing about this. No, not again! Very important part about the DNSSEC. When you have a key type that you choose yourself to sign your domain, you don't, the registrar doesn't need to do anything other than signing it with their key. And the key can be of any type. You can mix and match them on the way to the root zone. So the checks are literally useless, and we don't know why they are actually in place. We would like to greet Denik, who has taken 2 years to implement ED25519, and we still don't know when it will be implemented. But yeah. Right, registrars. The other problem that is quite common is beyond DNSSEC, the checks at registrars are kind of overzealous. Some of them don't accept .lol. Some of them have a problem with IPv6. And using a second level domain, so for instance, we have a name server just called Sakamoto.pl without any subdomain. It will not work on some registrars, and you have to use workarounds. Those are issues that should be solvable, and they are not not a limitation of DNS. They are purely a problem with how it is implemented. So we hope that maybe we will be able to talk with some registrars to actually fix their stuff. Whether this will pan out is another story, but yeah, we will keep you updated.
So, what did we do so far? We built a medium-sized DNS network. We currently host 86 zones or something. As we mentioned, we have working Power DNS proxy with authentication checks and stuff. It works.
Let's hope.
That's hope. Yeah. What did Merlin eat on that day? We don't know yet. Merlin didn't eat anything for dinner yet. And go follow DNS and do not stare. Thank you.
So yeah, we are ready for questions.
Yes, and we do have a lot of time for questions. So
Great.
just raise your hand if there are any questions. Maybe questions from the internet? No questions from the internet. Questions from the auditorium?
There's a person there.
There is a question. Just in the back. Far away.
Come.
There is a herald running to you. Okay, do you need anything?
I would like to know if there's a good implementation of DNSSEC.
What do you mean good implementation? On our side, we have a web UI for this that automates virtually everything about the problem. Merlin, can you open the web UI? That will be really funny if it doesn't work. So if you go to, can you increase the size? Oh yes, wonderful. If we go to any domain, wonderful. Please leak all of our records. Oh no, this is shared. Go to your domain. Yeah, and we go to the DNSSEC, and well, you can choose one of the key types, and you can create a key. Then further down the line, you just have to copy the digest of the key to your registrar, and everything else happens automatically, we hope. There are some problems around it. We intend to document most, if not all of them, on our docs. And So far, this works. It is quite fiddly. We had a lot of users who had problems with it, but not problems on our side, problems on the registrar side.
Okay, I see. Thank you.
Thank you. More questions? Just raise your hand. Don't be shy. There is another question in the in the back, please. And there's another question. You're the next one.
Can I get an account?
Can you what?
Can I get an account?
Yeah, sure.
Thank
Oh
you.
yeah, about accounts. If you are interested at all, please go to our IRC channel. It is also bridged to Matrix, so you should be able to join wherever. And ask for a code. Currently, the registrations are not open due to the fact that, well, we are still a beta and we kind of don't want too much load at once. We want to know that the users are well, maybe not trusted, but we want to have more control over this. In the future, we intend to add registrations based on, well, you provide a registration reason, and based on that, we either accept or deny it, purely to avoid spam.
So there has been a question here.
Have you considered becoming a registrar?
Actually, yes. Do you want to talk about that?
Short story, yes, we did. Long story, it's becoming a registrar is a bit annoying because you have to deal with the whole infrastructure of the top-level domains. I think there's been a talk at the May Contain Hackers by Q about that. It's all kinds of pain on the technical side, and it's called all kinds of pain dealing with money, basically.
We may get to there at some point. It will be fun. We also thought about making our own ASN for well, multicast, well, for IP shenanigans, basically. But yeah, this is something that will happen in the future. Maybe, hopefully. Let's hope.
Thank you. There is another question in the front.
Not a very important one, but just out of curiosity, which food had the most aggressive package generation script?
I don't think I can say the name on a family-friendly presentation.
Okay.
It devolved a bit.
Yeah, there were many swear words that you could technically eat. I will not mention what those were.
It's exactly what you're gonna expect or imagine. It's exactly that.
Correct.
We cannot say it out loud.
And unfortunately, Merlin refused to eat that.
I will not eat anything that I can't pronounce.
Anything at all.
That's very unhealthy. Please don't do it. But raise your hand if there are questions. There's a question in the back, I guess. I'm sorry the other Herald has to run long distances today.
Why don't you use a built-in DNS stuff of Power DNS?
Once again?
Why don't you use the built-in DNS sec stuff of Power DNS?
We do use DNS sec stuff from Power DNS. We just built a wrapper around it. Because to effectively manage your zone, like we cannot give you just shell access to our server and tell you, yeah, you run those two commands, this will be fine. So we have to do it over the API, and it's a bit more complicated. But this is Power DNS. We are not doing any shenanigans here. We just built a wrapper around it. Like the whole SERVFAIL web is just a thin layer of authentication and interface over the Power DNS API and a few other things.
So there are still 10 minutes left, and there is another question left.
There's two of you.
Maybe there's a question. Okay. Ah, there are two questions. Okay.
Has it caused any problems yet that your name collides with an error code, or was that?
Actually, yes.
Yes, nothing special. We wanted to add monitoring. From the beginning, we used Grafana. I tried to use Munon, whatever you may call it, MUNYN monitoring, which is just a wrap interface around RD tool. And yes, there is a Power DNS connector, and it breaks if there's anything SERVFAIL in the URL or in the API or whatever. They literally check for some other error codes including SERVFAIL. We had to patch that. We are not using Monin because there were some other issues. But yes, there is software that just breaks when there is anything SERVFAIL related anywhere.
And that's hilarious because it shouldn't.
Also, you really can't search our name. You have to know that we exist.
What's a pro though? Like I like this state.
There's been another question right there.
Do you have any clues why the big guys are incapable or too lazy to implement proper DNSSEC keys, or why they don't? Is it
laziness mostly? The whole DNS stack, like everywhere, is kind of handled as an afterthought, and nobody puts a lot of actual effort into making it nice, and that's a problem. There are not enough resources associated with the whole DNS ecosystem. This is also what we're trying to help with, because like I genuinely spend weeks writing our current implementation and making it as nice as possible. I will spend more time on it, just purely out of spite, because I wanted this to be better. This has no reason to, like, the status quo has no reason to be this bad.
Also, another thing about the registrars, I've heard from some places that it's a lot of enterprise corporate things, like you have a lot of bureaucracy and whatever, and we've always done it that way, and that we think is a big thing that contributes to the issue.
Thank you. There's another question at the wall.
What is your opinion of Punycode and why is it hard to implement?
I love Punycode.
Okay.
It isn't hard to implement per se, but you have to do some fuzzy checking to actually detect if it's used. The way it's implemented with the xn -- is, well, you can check for that, but you effectively have to check for it in every place you handle a subdomain or a domain name. And that's a pain when you actually want to display it nicely to the user. If you don't, and if you're fine with the normal notation, the one that's stored inside the actual records, then that's not a problem at all. But we strive for better, so that's why it took us a bit of time to implement it. We also found some weird behavior with IDN, the utility to actually convert from Punycode and back, where it would pass through invalid domains just fine. For instance, if you launch IDN in your terminal and type :3, then it will output :3 instead of crashing like it should.
There is another question there. Please just climb through.
Are there any questions to replace Power DNS with a bash solution?
I think the whole reason that they let me actually use bash is that we don't handle the the mission critical parts with bash, and I don't know if I would be comfortable with that. For what it's worth, the video over DNS thing that Merlin was presenting, I wrote that as a part of my project DNS server in bash, which, well, I went on holidays and I needed to do something, so of course I looked at Wireshark packet dumps. I never read any RFCs, I just looked at packet dumps and implemented things from that. And I learned a lot of stuff through that, mainly that writing something that would be actually optimal is a lot of work. I spent around a week on something that can just serve dummy requests. If you want to actually connect it to a data source, you have to do a lot of sanitizations, and it's much harder. As a query server, it would be really funny, but we would need to have compatibility with the Power DNS API. So I don't know how feasible it is. But since you mentioned it, it will now be forever on the back of my hat. Maybe one day.
Are there any questions from the internet? Are there? So please. Thank you.
By the way, I will just use the second for the record. I think my laptop has experienced the same issue as when you press B on Merlin's
No,
laptop.
I think it died more than that.
It's still on.
We don't know. Anyways, sorry for the technical problems. I hope you enjoyed the presentation. Yeah, thank you.
Please don't leave already. We still have some questions and we still have some time.
Are there any more funny ideas how to abuse the DNS protocol?
Can you please repeat the question?
Yeah,
You were
couldn't hear
very,
it.
very quiet.
Are there any more funny ideas how to abuse the DNS protocol?
Well, have you heard of iodine? That's a TCP, IP over DNS thing, which can be used to get internet on networks where you only have DNS working. This is really common on hotspots. Actually, in Germany, it's usually the filtering is usually implemented properly, but a few months ago, I was in the UK and I didn't have any mobile data. I was abusing iodine on every open network I could find, and the success rate was like 90%. With most networks, I could push like 60 megabits over DNS technically through my server in Warsaw.
Also, as we learned from the YouTube to DNS converter project, you can store a lot of data in DNS. We yesterday or the day before that, from the DNS talk, we learned that there are people who store their backups in DNS. We may have to introduce some usage limits, a few gigabytes per user only, but you can store anything and everything in DNS somehow.
Please don't. My friend is going to be mad at me when I fill up our server.
So still 3 minutes left. It's your chance to ask questions. Okay, I don't see any questions. If you have a question, just wave. There is one at the wall, just around the corner.
So essentially you just built a...
Meow.
So essentially you just built a very good distributed key value store for me to use, right?
I mean, that's DNS, yes.
I don't like it, but you're right.
So last two questions. Question from the internet? No questions from the internet. Questions here? You just have to wave because it's very dark. No questions left. Thank you very much. We had some fun and giggles, as you just announced in your title. Thank you very much, Domi, Merlin, and Famfo. And please applaud.